Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again. I'm your host, Jenny G. Cousins. Thank you for tuning in to Soul to Soul Connections with Jenny G. Now, in order to watch these videos and podcasts, make sure that you're tuned in and subscribe to the channel. There's there's many platforms that we're going to be on with these interviews. The links will be below in the description box as well as my guest. Now, also, if you feel that you have a story you'd love to share with me, something you'd like to talk about, by all means, reach out because you never know. I very well could say, let's have a chat. Let's get your story out there. So the only way you're going to know is to send me a message. The best way to get in touch with me, just go through my website, soulworkwithjennygg.com, because if you send me messages on social media, sometimes social media can hide those messages and we don't see it for a really long time after. So I'm going to introduce you to my guest today. Now, he's extraordinary. I just like, you know what? We're going to have a chat with him. So before I introduce him, I'm just going to give you a little bit of his bio so you can read his entire website and information as well. We're going to put that in a link below as well. Now, my guest today is John Davis. He has had a near-death experience that is so profound. So at the age of 21, John's life took a dramatic turn following a serious moped accident. It resulted in a torn tendons in his hand, requiring surgical repair. So during the operation, John had an allergic reaction to the anesthetic or anesthesia. I never say that word right, sorry.
Yeah.
And he was clinically dead for 7 minutes. Now, during his time that he was dead, his story is so profound. Like I literally have chills, and I want to share this with you. And we're going to have John, of course, share his story and his experience to really open up your eyes. And please welcome John Davis. Now, John, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Oh, hi, Jenny. It's my pleasure. I always love to share my story. So thank you so much for the invitation. And I hope that it gives your listeners the same kind of hope and encouragement that it gave me all those years ago.
Yes, I'm sure it will. I'm just sure it will. It's going to bring people a lot of peace and understanding. So
Good.
now, before you had surgery, did you have any funny kind of a weird feeling before, like something was going to happen, or just pretty much the same old?
It was the same old thing. I was out just riding this moped, this scooter along, and we did all the time. We rode them all the time. And just that particular day, I just had that accident and slammed into a tree. But it was just like any other day. Nothing else was unusual.
Wow,
Yeah.
things happen for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So,
Very
so what
true.
happened then? So you go and your doctor says, okay, we're going to have to do surgery, of course, and you're like,
Right.
okay.
Yep.
So what happened? Like what happened?
So my mom drove me down to the hospital or the clinic, and when they wheeled me in, they started to give me the anesthesia to knock me out. And I had some kind of horrible reaction to it, and it stopped my heart. And I felt my eyes close, my eyes closed, and it seemed like a second later, like a split second later, I opened up my eyes and I was standing in the most beautiful building I had ever seen. It was so long. I couldn't even see the end of it. And you know what my very first thought was? My first thought was I had no idea the hospital was this big
No.
because I didn't even know that I had died during the whole NDE experience. I didn't know what actually happened until after. So I'm standing in this beautiful building and I look over to my right, and on the right hand side of me are columns, just like ones behind you, and that, but they were Greek looking, really tall, 20 or 30 feet tall marble columns. They were going all the way down as far as I could see, about 6 feet apart, every single one of them. Well, in the middle of this building, there were all these white marble tables, again, going down as far as you could see. And each one of them had two people sitting at these tables. And right about then, in my left ear, I can hear, "My name is Alan. I'm your spirit guide." Well, I was raised Catholic, and I had never heard of anything like a spirit guide before. The only thing I could think of was maybe it was an angel or something. I had no idea. But apparently, and you probably know this too, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, is that all of us have guides. We all have guides who help us plan our lifetime, and they are with us all the way through our entire lifetime. So Alan, he said, "My name is Alan. I'm your spirit guide." And then what happened is he started telling me everything that I was seeing. And one thing I want to tell your listeners that kind of makes my experience kind of unique is when we hear about a near death story, the person is either have there's some kind of an accident or they're having surgery and they die and they find themselves floating above their bodies, and then they start moving down this tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel there's a white light, but they're met by someone, a family member, a friend, a loved one, who tells them it's not your time, you have to go back. So we have never known what's on the other side of that light. But what they did with me is my whole story starts on the other side of that light. And what it is, Alan told me the building that I was standing in is called the Orientation Center.
Hmm.
And that's what's on the other side of the white light at the end of the tunnel. So he told me that the two people that were sitting at every one of these tables, they're called orientation counselors.
Hmm.
And what they do is they help people make the transition from their earth life back to the other side or back to home again.
Hmm.
So I looked over to my left hand side of this building, and it looked like these doorways or tunnels had been cut out of solid marble, because this building looked like it was just a large, gigantic Greek looking marble building, but beautiful. And with all these tunnels going down as far as you could see. And my guide, Alan, said, "Look at the next tunnel." So I looked up, and there was a man that was coming through this tunnel. He was an elderly gentleman, probably in his 90s, and he was doing this. He had his right hand over his chest. And Alan told me, he said he just died of a heart attack. And so he started coming down the tunnel. And when he went into the light, he entered into the orientation center where I was standing. And the counselor, this one woman who was sitting right next to that tunnel, she stood up. She walked over to this man. She took his hands in hers and she led him back to the table. And they sat down across from each other. Well, she held his hands the entire time she was talking to him. And I was too far away to hear what she was saying. But my guide, Alan, said that what she's doing is telling him that he just finished his
Hmm.
life on earth.
Hmm.
He passed from a heart attack, and now he's back on the other side. And the reason that those orientation counselors are there is to help people not be afraid of dying.
Hmm.
Because when we come into a lifetime, when we leave the other side and come to a place like Earth, we don't remember where we're from.
Hmm.
We don't remember the other side. We don't remember anything about God. We don't remember anything about having a guide. And so that's what these orientation counselors do. And Alan told me, he said, "Watch that man." Well, I was watching him, and as this woman was talking to him about he's back home again, he finished his life, he's back on the other side, the strangest thing started to happen, Jenny. He started to change from an
Oh,
elderly gentleman into a young man in his 30s.
wow.
And Alan said to me, he said, everybody on the other side is in their 30s. And I wish I would have asked him
Mm.
why that was, but I don't know. I don't know if that's because Jesus died in his 30s, or I think that's just how God created us. We're actually all in our 30s. Well, when she was done talking to him, when he changed back into a young man, he stands up and he walks off to the right, and he walks between two of these columns and walks down three steps of stairs into he walked into what I call the gardens. I don't know if that's what they call this place, but it was beautiful, manicured, gorgeous, perfect gardens, beautiful green grass and flowers and plants everywhere. And there were all these people there. And Alan told me that this is what is called the reunion. The first part, when we all pass, we go down the tunnel, we end up in the orientation center, we have our orientation, and then we go into these gardens where everybody is there to greet you. And
Oh,
this gentleman, he must have had 150 or 200 people that were all there waiting for him.
wow.
And these were people that he had known in his lifetime that passed before him, like parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, all the people were there to greet him. And my guide, Alan, said, it's a really big deal when any of us come to a planet like Earth, because there are many, many of us who don't want to come here
Yeah.
because it is so hard. And we've all experienced tough times here. And all the people there were there to greet him. It was like having a big party. Everyone was hugging him, everyone was clapping and applauding and telling him that he did a great job. He finished his life and now he's back home again. So it
Oh,
was just so amazing to see all of that. So we go to the orientation, then we have the reunion. And then what happened is my guide, Alan, started to take me on this journey of the other side. And I only saw a small part of it. So I can't claim to know everything about it, but I just saw a small part. And what he did is he started to take me to these different places, and he showed me what they looked like, and then he took me to the inside to tell me what these buildings were about. So the first place he takes me to after the reunion is to this gigantic, large, Greek looking, beautiful building. It looked completely out of marble. It was rectangular, had columns all along the perimeter of the building. And it was so large. I can't, there's nothing on earth that would even come close to how large this building was. So he takes me to the inside, and we walk into what we would call a movie theater, but it
hmm.
was round. It was a big round room. And on top of the ceiling were all of these movie screens. There must have been 15 or 20 different movie screens in this building. And he said to me, this is the life review. And all of a sudden, every one of these movie screens lit up. And it looked like it was playing movies about my life. One of the screens had me as a little infant. Another one had me as a toddler. Another one had me on my first day of kindergarten. And Alan said to me, the life review is the greatest teacher of the soul. And the reason for that is because we can feel how our actions affected other people in our lifetime. And one of the screens that was playing was me, either like second or third grade. And we were at recess one day just playing. Well, one of the kids in our class, his name was Toby, and Toby had something wrong with his legs. He had either Parkinson's or MS, and he couldn't walk without crutches on his arms. So we're at recess one day, and something happened, and he fell. And I ran up to him. I helped pick him up, put his crutches back on. And that's just something any of us would have done. I never thought anything about that.
Yeah.
Well, when I watched that part of the movie screen, I could feel how appreciative he was that I stopped and helped him. And it was just an amazing feeling to know that, wow, I actually helped him and he really appreciated that. Well, on the other end of that is if we intentionally hurt somebody in
Mhm.
our lifetime, we also have to feel how our actions made that soul feel in
Wow.
that lifetime. And I think that's why Alan told me that that's the greatest teacher of the soul.
Yeah. Yes. That, I mean, and that out of anything, it can wake someone up
Yeah.
in
Yep.
a really big way because they don't realize the effect they've truly made on somebody with hurting them and the pain. So,
Yep.
wow.
Yep. Exactly. And I think that the way that it's set up is everybody has to go through the life review. Nobody gets to skip it.
Yeah, no.
Everyone has to go through it. So they can see how their actions affected other people. And what's interesting too is that it's not in an environment of judgment. Nobody's there to judge you. You're actually judging yourself. It's just with you and your guide are there to look at your life and see how you did.
Yeah.
And so then what he takes me to another building, and this building looked very similar to the first one, this beautiful white marble building with gorgeous columns, marble columns. And we go on the inside, and this one looked like what we would call a modern day movie theater. And there was a big movie screen up front. And Alan said to me, I'm going to show you three past lifetimes.
Wow. Yeah.
This was so strange for me because I was raised Catholic. We used to go to church all the time. And as you know, in Catholicism, there is no past life. There, you just have the one lifetime. You have to live it right, or there's going to be consequences. So I had no experience or knowledge about past lifetimes. So Alan said, I'm going to show you this first lifetime. So the screen lights up and I'm standing there and it's me, but I didn't look anything like I look now. I just knew that it was me. And I had a shaved head and I was wearing a red kind of a gown or a robe. And this life took place in a monastery. And there were all these young kids around. And Alan told me that in that lifetime, my job was to teach kids how to become monks in this in
Wow.
this in this temple, this monastery. And he said that life took place in Southeast Asia. And then the screen went blank. And then he said, I'm going to show you another lifetime. And the screen lights up. And again, it's me, but this time I am pushing a, a wooden wheelbarrow down this cobblestone street. And inside the wheelbarrow were all of these shoes. And in that life, I fixed people's shoes in that village. And then when I brought them back, I just stuck them in the wheelbarrow and took them back to people's homes. And and Alan said that life took place in Eastern Europe. And then it disappeared. And then he said, I'm going to show you one more past life. And the screen lights up. Again, it's me. And I'm standing in an old wooden boat. And it was either on a lake or on the ocean. And I was doing this with fishing nets. I was pulling these nets inside the boat. And in that life, I was a fisherman and I would catch fish to help feed the village. And then that life disappeared. And I think Alan realized that I was going to have a hard time with that part of the NDE because I was never raised to believe that was possible.
Yeah.
So he told me, he said, we, meaning all of us, we have always been, and we are as eternal as God is eternal. And if a person wants to have different lifetimes, they certainly can. It's completely up to them. And God gave all of us at creation the love of learning new things. And
Mm.
that's why he set it up so that we can come into these different planets and learn and experience and grow. That's why the whole thing was set up. But nobody forces anyone to go into a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's completely up to each individual soul.
When you were showing, like, just because I also do past life Akashic record readings, when you were showing, like three lifetimes, did you like, wow, that looks familiar, or did you feel anything, or just
I everything was everything was happening so quickly like this that I didn't even have time to think, because I would have thought, what in the world is he talking about?
yeah,
That doesn't even look like me on that movie screen. How is that
yeah,
possible?
yeah,
So I had such a everything was over in the next
mhm.
days and weeks after the NDE, that's when I started to put things together.
Oh,
And
interesting. Mhm.
yeah, something that I'll tell you, and for your listeners too, is I was so skeptical because that's just I think I'm the
Yeah.
most skeptical person I've ever known. So about 2 months after my NDE, I went to see a hypnotherapist because I had heard that in hypnosis you can see past lifetimes.
Mhm.
So I thought if I could see other lifetimes, then I would know that my whole experience was real and it
Oh,
wasn't just some kind of hallucination or dream.
yeah.
So I went to see it. I went to see this woman, and sure enough, I saw three different lifetimes.
Wow.
And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, it was real. Everything that happened was real. And then so the next part of this, that's what I called the past life building. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that's what they call it.
Yeah.
So the next place he takes me to, this was the most beautiful building so far. It was a gigantic, huge, round building. It had a big dome on top, and it had the marble columns all around the circumference of the building. This gorgeous, beautiful building. And Alan told me, he said, "This is the place where we go when we plan lifetimes." And
Mm.
I don't know why we go to that place, but that's apparently where we go. And so he walks me in and he walks me up to this beautiful white marble table. And there was one object sitting on this table, and it was a scroll. And it looked like, have you ever seen like Egyptian papyrus paper?
Yeah.
It looked like that. It looked just like, but it was rolled up and it had a blue ribbon around it. So
Mm.
I picked up the scroll and I took off the ribbon and I did this. I unfolded it on the table. And Alan said to me, everybody writes down their goals for each lifetime. That
Mm.
nobody on earth is an accident. We all actually plan our lifetimes.
Yeah.
We plan things like what country are we going to be born into? What language are we going to learn? Are we going to go to a university? What kind of careers are we going to pursue? Are we going to have families and kids? And all these things go into a lifetime. And he said it's very similar to what a lot of us do when we plan New Year's resolutions at the
Oh,
end of every
interesting.
year. Yeah, it's kind of like that. We want to lose 30 pounds. I want to stop smoking. I want to go to the gym, all those things that we plan for. And then he said that when we come into a lifetime, we live our life. And when we finish and come back to the other side, we come back to this building and get our scroll and compare and see how we did.
Oh.
Well, right about then, I went to try to read my scroll, and
Mm.
it did this. It
Oh, okay.
folded up and I wasn't able to read
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you have experience with that. And
Yeah.
I think the reason was because if I had known some of the challenges I had planned for myself, I would have done
Yeah.
something that I may not have done it then.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I looked,
Exactly.
yeah, this will blow your mind too. So I looked to my right. On the right hand side of where I was this huge wall. It had to be miles long, and it was full of scrolls. And Ellen said everybody who was having a lifetime back in 1987 when this happened, they all had a corresponding scroll on this wall. And that's where Alan got my scroll. It was already on this wall. He took it out to show me that we all actually plan our lifetime. So before we leave that building, he takes me to another area because the building is so large I can't even describe how big it was. But he takes me to another area, and it looked like a library with tall bookshelves, just a huge library. But what was different is every one of the books looked exactly the same. Have you, when you were a kid, do you remember having Encyclopedia Britannicas?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what these books looked like. They were thick and they were all like the color of purple or kind of maroon. And all of them had gold colored lettering on the binding, but it didn't go horizontally. All the lettering went vertically. And he walked me up to a book and he said, this book said Nina, Nina. And he said to me, Nina is your soulmate.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I had never heard that term before. I had no idea what that was. Because back in 1987, nobody was talking about spirit guides or soulmates, or there wasn't even an NDE yet. It hadn't happened yet. And he said to me, when God created us, he created every single one of us with a soulmate. And that person is with you for throughout eternity, forever.
Mhm.
And he said that the books that I was looking at, all of these books contain all the information about that soul, what kind of gifts God created them with, how many lifetimes that they have had, all the different things that they have learned in those lifetimes are all in these books. And every single one of us has a soulmate. And I thought that was wonderful because
Yeah.
so many people, when they're here on earth, they think that I never met my soulmate. What's wrong with me? How come I never found the perfect love or what?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't come here for that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they come to earth for working on, like, maybe I want to work on a skill or I want to work on a particular career. There's all kinds of different reasons for people coming here.
Yeah.
And just because you didn't find your perfect mate, it doesn't mean you failed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always felt my person is on the other side.
Yeah.
Like it's like I can hear him and talk with him on the other side. He's
Wow,
not here.
Jenny, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
wish I wish that I would have asked Alan because all these years, that's probably the number one question that I get asked is
Mhm.
does the soulmate come into your lifetime with you? And the first impression that I got was that they can.
Mhm.
There's nothing that says that they can't, but
Mhm.
I think most of them probably don't. And I think the reason for that is because when you're on the other side, there's no pain over there or confusion or hurt or death or poverty or war, and there's no conflict. When you come into a place like Earth, we learn a lot by going through hard things.
Yeah.
And when you go through relationships, we've all had breakups. Everybody's had breakups, and they all teach us something.
Mhm.
And I think if we had our soulmate with us in every single life, we may not learn that much about
Exactly.
relation. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Because I mean, I even get people saying, "How come you're still single?" And it's really hard to explain. It's like I just don't settle. You know what
exactly.
I mean? I have to be and I don't even go on about it really because it's too hard to explain.
Yeah,
You know
yep.
what I mean?
And
So
we're so conditioned. Our
yeah,
society conditions us to think that you can't be happy if you didn't find your soulmate, if you didn't have kids, or all the things that we all think we're supposed to do. And we spend our entire lifetime trying to get back to who we are on the other side.
exactly.
The other, yeah, the other thing that I try to tell people is that the other side doesn't look at success like we do.
Yeah.
Here on Earth, we're raised to believe that to be successful, you have to have a CEO job, or you have to have a lot of money. You've got to have the biggest house. You've got to have the largest 401k. But on the other side, what they look at as success is, who did you become in
Yes,
that lifetime? What
exactly.
did you, yeah, what did you learn? Who did you help? Did
Mm,
you make a difference with your life?
exactly.
Because
100%.
yeah, because when we all die, when our time comes, God's not going to ask us, how much money did you make?
Yeah.
You know, exactly. None of that
Yeah.
matters to them.
Money's just energy.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think so many of us have to unlearn everything that we thought was true. And
Yeah.
that's part of what, yeah, that's part of one of the reasons that I love to do this work, is to help people remember that just because you believe something doesn't mean it's real.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's true. And I had to learn that about religion, because I
Yeah.
thought everything that I was told was true.
Mhm.
But so much of it is not true.
Yeah. Exactly. But people say like, "Oh, gee, are you religious?" And I'm like, "No, I'm spiritual."
Exactly.
And number one law is do not judge.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
always say that
Exactly.
in like I do weekly videos and stuff, and I always say that do not ever judge anybody.
Yeah.
You should be unconditional love and kindness towards others. You truly don't know that person, what they've been through.
Exactly. Yep. Everybody's going through something. Every single person.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's so important. So important. So now
Mhm.
you saw pets, right? Like
Yeah.
you saw animals. Like I'm also an
Yeah.
animal communicator, right?
Yeah.
And I mean even when like my pets have passed on, I can communicate with them, but it's not the same. You know, people say it must be nice, and I'm like, it's not the same. They're not here. But
Yeah.
you saw animals. Like there's a lot of animal lovers
They
out there. What did you see?
yep.
Like,
God in all of his goodness, he created animals with souls, just like we do, just like we have souls. And when they pass, they also make the transition also to the
yeah,
other side. And we have our pets for eternity. And when I was there during the um the reunion for that gentleman that I was watching, I saw my two cats there. Their names were Boo and Muffin, and they were my childhood cats. My sister and I just loved these cats to death. We loved them. They were with us for so many years, and it was so wonderful to know that they're there. They're actually there. All of our animals that we've loved through our entire lives, they're all going to be there to greet every one of us.
like did
They're
they see
all
you?
there.
Like, did you acknowledge each other,
No,
you and your animals?
no,
Like,
they were just playing.
yeah,
They're just playing with each other, and I didn't. There wasn't enough time for me to go actually to sit down
yeah,
and play with them.
yeah.
Everything was just going so
Showing,
quickly.
showing to
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Yep. I could just see them and know that, oh my gosh, those are my cats.
yeah.
They're
Like,
actually, they make it also. They make it too, just like we do.
did they
Yeah.
look really young? Like, were they like
Very, yeah.
were they like a kitten or
They weren't
like,
kittens. They were old. They were
yeah,
older than kittens,
yeah,
but they weren't old. They were
yeah,
young again,
yeah.
young and healthy and having fun and playful. And that's something that I know that there's so many of us that are animal lovers. And I think it's just wonderful to know that, because there's so many of us that we're more attached to our animals than we're attached to some people. And
Oh my God.
yeah, and they're actually all there. All of our animals are there. Well, here's my favorite part, Jenny, of my whole NDE. This is my favorite part. So we leave the big dome building, and he takes me to another building. He showed me the outside, and the outside looked like a sports stadium, kind of like we would go to watch football or soccer, but it didn't have marble. It looked like stainless steel. This one was different in terms of the structure that all the other ones that I saw. So then we go on the inside, and the first thing I notice, we go inside, and there are all these seats. There must have been thousands of seats inside this gigantic building, and all the lights were on. It was really bright, And Alan said to me, he said, "This is a planetarium." When you were a kid, did you ever take field trips to planetariums?
I love it. I do photography of the stars.
Oh yeah, so yeah, you know exactly what they are. Well, when I was in first grade, we took a field trip to a planetarium, and it was amazing because you can see the things on the ceiling. Well, there was a gentleman that was behind me when I was inside this planetarium. The gentleman behind me, he was the person that knew everything about astronomy. He was someone that we would call like a professor about astronomy. And everybody on the other side, do you remember when I talked about those two counselors in the orientation center
Yeah.
and the gentleman behind me? On the other side, we all do the kind of things that we love to do. We love, and they're usually based around the gifts that God gave us. We were all given gifts. And the people in the orientation center, they love to work with people who are passing. They're kind of like counselors. Well, the gentleman behind me, he knew everything about astronomy. And he said to me, he said, "Let's begin." All of a sudden, all the lights went off. It was pitch black. And I sat down, looked at the ceiling. And he said to me, "When you look at the stars, this is what you see." And what he was talking about was everybody back in 1987, when they go outside and look at the stars, this is what they know to be there. And our sun, our star showed up, and then Mercury, then Venus, then Earth, then Mars, then Jupiter and Saturn, then Uranus and Neptune, all the planets that make up our solar system. And then it disappeared. And then he said, when we look at the stars, this is what we see. And he was talking about everybody on the other side. When they look at the stars, this is what they know to be there. And all of a sudden, planet after first there were dozens, then hundreds, then millions and billions of other planets. And he said to me, he said, there is far more life in the universe than you can possibly imagine. And I think there were two reasons why Alan showed me this. The first one was to tell me that Earth is not the only inhabited planet, it's just one of billions in the universe. And I think the second reason was to tell me that Earth is not the only planet that we can have lifetimes on. There are virtually unlimited other worlds that we can have lifetimes on. And something that I want to tell your audience to kind of give them a scale as to how large this, what he was trying to tell me, how to explain it. And after my NDE, I got really involved in astronomy, and I just love to learn about it. And astronomers believe now that just our galaxy, just the Milky Way, that there are 100 billion planets just in our galaxy. And they believe that there are 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. Well, if every single galaxy has 100 billion planets and there's 2 trillion of them, it's so astronomical. I can't even comprehend how large that is.
Yeah.
It's just enormous.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I love stargazing. I take
Yeah.
pictures of the full moon and what I can. I've always like laid down in a field and just felt at home with the stars and the planets.
Oh, I know. Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite part. And then this next part was really interesting too. So we leave the planetarium, and he takes me to the largest building that he showed me so far. It was so long, it would have taken literally days to walk to the end of this building. It was made of white marble, but it didn't have columns on the sides. The only time that had columns was in the front of this building. And it had all of these white steps leading up to the top, to the entrance. So we go inside, and I know immediately that this is a library. There were
Mm.
these tall bookshelves, maybe 20 feet high, all wood bookshelves, going down as far as you could possibly see, so long you couldn't see the end. And there were all these people there. Some people were visiting with others, some people were studying at tables, other people were looking at books. And my guide, Alan, walked me over to the left hand side of this library. And on the left hand side were all of these study rooms, just like we have in modern libraries today. And he walks me up to this one room, and there was a woman who was sitting there. She had her back to me. She had jet black hair that went down to her waist, and she was sitting on a couch, and she had some kind of a purplish kind of a robe or a gown on, and she was watching something on the wall. And Jenny, this is so interesting because do you remember what our TV sets looked like back in 1987?
Yeah.
They were those huge, gigantic, and you couldn't. They weighed hundreds of pounds. You couldn't put
Yeah.
them on a wall. Well, what this woman was watching, she was watching what we would call today as a 70-inch plasma screen television mounted on the wall. And I remember looking at that thinking, what is that? Because we didn't have those. We didn't have those here on Earth. They
Yeah.
weren't even invented yet. So I was just like, what in the world is she looking at? So then Alan told me, he said, get closer to see what she's watching. So I got closer, and I looked at the screen, and she was watching a battle that was taking place between Native American Indians on
Oh,
horseback and the United States cavalry on horseback. And it was a battle, this battle going on. And I thought she was watching a movie.
yeah. Yeah.
What else would it be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Alan said to me, he said, she's watching living history.
Oh, wow.
And I said, that's impossible because 250 years ago, we didn't have video cameras.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no way that could be recorded.
Yeah.
And he said to me, everything gets recorded.
Wow. Wow.
And even to this day, all these years later, I still don't understand how that's possible.
Yeah.
But it's obviously it's a God thing because when
Yeah.
when I was in the life review building or life review room, every one of those screens was playing an episode of my life like it was being videotaped.
Yeah.
And that's for all of us. So if you're on the other side and you wanted to learn about the life of Anne Frank or Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King Jr., you could go to the library.
Wow.
You could actually watch their lives. You
That's
could
amazing.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, and
That's
you can watch any era of Earth's history. You could watch the Crusades. You could watch World War II. I mean, anything. You could
yeah.
watch and learn everything. And what's so neat is that God wanted us to all have the joy of learning, to grow, to
Yeah.
always learn forever. And he created all of these ways for us to learn. So even on the other side, we still learn and grow and
Yeah.
develop, just like we do here. And that's what I called the library. Well, the next place he takes me to was a gigantic, beautiful castle. And the castle was made of stones, just like they were made back in medieval Europe, in France and in England.
Wow.
Beautiful stone castles. And the reason he took me here is Alan wanted me to tell people that you could actually go to these places and see what people lived in during that time period. So we walked in the castle, and the first thing that I noticed is there was red carpeting all along the floor, and it made you feel like you were royalty. The idea was that you could feel what it felt like for those people to walk into those castles during that time
Oh,
period.
wow.
Well, this was also a large building, but it wasn't as long as a library. And there were walls on both sides. And on both sides of the walls, there were life size paintings. And they were life size paintings of people that had lived during that time period. You could see what they looked like King George or Queen Anne. And
Wow.
you could see the kind of clothes that they were wearing, what they looked like, and what they wore during that time period. Well, in front of every one of these paintings,
Mhm.
there was a podium about 3 feet in front of the painting. And Alan told me that on top of the podium was a book, and the book was about that person's lifetime. If you wanted to learn about Queen Elizabeth, you could go to her painting, see what she looked like. Then you
Wow.
could read about her in the book. You could read everything about her life.
Wow.
So something catches my eye in my right eye. So I look to my right, and there was a woman who was coming down. You know, remember how castles had those round stairwells?
Yeah.
She was walking down one of those, and she had strawberry blonde hair, kind of like the length of yours. And she was wearing like a peach colored outfit, like a peach colored gown. And she was walking right to me. And I thought she was going to say something like, "You're not supposed to be here. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I didn't know why she was walking up to me, but she walked up to me and she said, "Is there anything I can help you find?"
Oh, wow.
And Jenny, I said the stupidest thing. I said, "No, thanks. I'm just looking." I
Oh,
didn't know what to, yeah, I
well,
didn't know
yeah.
what to say. Yeah. I had no idea what to say to this woman. And Alan told me, he said that on the other side, she loves everything about history,
Yeah.
particularly medieval history. So if you were on the other side and you wanted to learn about what it was like in medieval Europe, you could go to the castle, see what they lived in. You could look at the paintings, see what they looked like. You could read about them in the book, or you could ask this woman any question about
Wow.
that time period. She was like, she was kind of like what we would call a historian of that
Mhm.
period
Yeah.
of Earth's
Yeah.
history. Yeah. So then here is the very last part of my NDE. So we leave the castle, and Alan takes me to the most beautiful meadow that I have ever seen. I've never seen anything like it here on Earth. It was a perfect day outside. The sun was shining, beautiful round hills and meadows and wildflowers and green grass. It was just breathtakingly beautiful. And then Alan left. He disappeared. And I thought that I was standing there by myself.
Yeah.
So I turned around. I turned around to look at the rest of the meadow, and right in front of me was standing Jesus, the being that we know as Jesus. And he didn't have to tell me who he was. I just knew that that's who this was.
Yep.
And I could see that he was wearing a kind of a white colored gown,
Yep.
and he had a golden sash around his waist, and he was wearing like gold colored sandals that laced up his calves. And when I went to look at his face, it looked like this. It looked like all of this light was just coming out of his face, like shards of lightning. And it
Yeah.
was so bright, I couldn't see what he looked like. And I knew he was different because everybody else I saw, they looked just like you and I do. Everyone has their own look, everyone has their own personality, just like we all do here. We're still the same on the other side. But he was different because of how he looked, and he spoke to me, and he
Mhm.
said, "You must tell them there is no death." And the second that he said that, I woke back up in the operating room, and it was so hard for me because I didn't want to come back.
Yep.
I didn't want to stay here. I wanted to go back where all of them were. And the only thing that helped me was remembering what he said.
Yes.
It was because he didn't say it like, you know what, John, when you're not busy, when you're not having a lot of stuff going on, when it's convenient for you, would you mind sharing what we showed you? He didn't say that. He said, you must tell them
Yeah.
there is no death.
Yes.
And so that's my whole story, my whole NDE.
Yeah. 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 I get that 100%. You know, I mean, I've had several near-death experiences myself, and the one for
Yeah.
me that stood out was when I actually met Christ as well,
Oh
Jesus.
my gosh.
And I mean,
Really?
I channel and with the Christ consciousness. That's how
Yeah.
I do my readings.
Wow, Jenny, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like that my experience, I mean all of them, but especially that experience, I can close my eyes right this second as if I was there at this very second, seeing the same thing and hearing the same
Yeah.
thing and like well the message you gave to me. But I understand that. Like when you like, you know, like finally woke up and everything like that, did you like you obviously of course felt like different, you know, like
Yeah. I couldn't even believe that I was still in the hospital because
yeah.
I totally forgot all about that. It didn't even occur to me that I was supposed to be having surgery. So
Yeah.
it was very strange. Yeah, it was very strange.
So
And
out
in
of
fact,
go on, sorry.
my as my mom was driving me home, I told her about everything that happened. And the only book that was out during that time in the 80s was Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life.
Mm.
And so my mom had that at home and she gave it to me and I read that book that whole book overnight.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I was in heaven or the other side, the afterlife, whatever you want to call it. That's where I was. And
Yeah.
that's when I started to realize, oh my gosh, there is so much more than we're raised to believe.
Yeah.
So
So
that was
what,
my whole,
sorry.
yeah. No, I was going to say that was my whole experience.
So out of your whole experience that you went through, you know, with your near death, what do you feel out of anything that you saw that like awoken you or that really stood out to you or that really changed you? Like, was it a message? Was it something that like Jesus said or something? Was there something that you're like out of everything that I saw, heard, felt, happened,
Yeah, yeah,
like the thing for you?
there yeah, there were a lot of things like that, but I think the one that stood out the most for me was when I was standing there right in front of Christ or Jesus. I had the most extraordinary feeling from him that they don't care what religion we follow here on earth. All they care about is whatever religion you follow, that it brings you closer to God. Because when I was over there, I didn't get any sense that this is where the Catholics are, and over here's where the Hindus are, over here's where the Muslims are, over here the Buddhists are there. It just felt like they didn't look at religion like we do here on earth. It's more of a spirituality, a love, a compassion, a joy in each other. There wasn't really any sense of religion at all, and that was profound for me because of how I was raised.
When you met Al, your spirit guide, did you feel I know him somehow or like any familiarity at all?
You know, I didn't. Everything just felt so incredibly comfortable. I never even. I wish that I would have turned around to look at him
Yeah,
because I didn't even see what he looked like. But
yeah,
he was talking to me the whole time in my ear. But
yeah,
everything was just happening so quickly. I was just focused on everything I was looking at,
yeah,
everything he was telling me. And what's so fascinating too is people have asked me for a lot that I come back with any kind of an ability or skill or something. Because some people come back from an NDE and they have some new abilities.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have anything other than the fact that I think God gave me the ability to remember every single detail of what I was told and what I saw. Because usually I have a really bad memory. Like, I don't think I could even tell you what I ate for dinner last night, but I remember every single thing that I was shown, just like it happened yesterday. And I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
yeah, and I think they did that so that I would be able to tell people everything that I saw.
Yeah. Did you like have any like whenever you saw like the gardens and stuff, did you smell flowers, or was there like no smell or, like or heard birds chirping or like
I don't actually remember that part.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I didn't notice any smells or anything.
yeah, yeah. Wow. That I love it. Like I love
Yeah.
this,
And
you know.
I want to tell people, just so that people know, the most important thing that I want to leave people with is the idea that you don't have to be afraid of dying, because the happiest day you will ever know is going to be your last day, because that's the day you get to go home. And all the things that you've been through, all the heartaches, all the disappointments, all the pain you've gone through in your life, you'll learn that those are the things that made you who you are. And that's what you take with you. So don't be afraid of dying. It's how God set this whole thing up.
Yeah,
We all have to pass. That's how we get back home again.
yeah. And I believe that, certain people are chosen to have near-death experiences to share with the world that dying is natural, no matter
Yeah.
what happens, whenever our time is. And, as I mentioned, even before I worked on and off call at hospices for years. And what I
Yeah.
found most out of anything was the families, and the
Yeah.
friends, like, as I talk to patients who are the ones that are passing away, the biggest thing that they would say is, I'm more worried about my loved ones and my friends when I'm gone. How are they going to be? Because I know
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay, because they felt people, and they, it's like when somebody's like coming
Yeah.
near to the end of death, they're looking up and such like that, or they're
Yeah.
staring and
Yep.
people like, what are they doing? Oh, it's just the medication or the drugs that they're on or whatever. But it's like
Yep.
they're communicating with the afterworld, their loved ones, that saying,
Yeah.
hey, I'm over here, I'm right
Yep.
here and everything like that. And I've heard so many stories just from that
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
experiences,
I have too.
Like, did you see any angels, like, or any angels at all, or
No, I
that?
didn't actually, and I thought about that too. I was like, I wonder if there were angels there, but I didn't see any.
Yeah,
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 I'm sure there are. I totally
yeah.
believe in angels.
Oh, 100%. Like even at the hospice, I would find feathers on the floor because I mean I can see when somebody's passing and leaving their body and lots of things. I don't talk about that, of course, but
Yeah.
and at times I've found a feather and
Oh,
I would
wow.
take a photo of it, like a physical feather, and I would take a photo of it. I used to have an album. I'd never say what or like who the patient. I'd never mention anything. And then and I call it a hospice album. But then I was told by them you have to take that album down, and I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So I had to delete it all. I got really upset,
yeah,
because it was, but yeah, I've seen angel feathers, and it's not just because the pillow had feathers in it,
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's so many stories about that I've had. So I get it. And that's why I do these stories, because it can help someone, especially they're grieving, or
oh, yeah,
they're missing someone, or maybe they're soon leaving themselves. It gives that kind of
yeah,
thank you for kind of that reassurance, or I'm finding peace and all. It's so important for me to do these interviews, and I'm so grateful for you coming on and sharing your story and your experience, it hits
Well,
home with me in a lot of way.
yeah, well, I want to thank you for inviting me because I know that even if just one person hears this, it's going to help them. It's going to make a difference.
Yes.
And in people like you who do this kind of work, it is so wonderful to know that there are people like you who are out here trying to make a difference. And it's in somebody could read this or see this in 50 years from now,
Yeah.
and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, there's nothing I have to be afraid of. I don't have
Yes.
to be afraid of dying."
Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah,
even with my work, because my work is all spiritual. I read people and
yeah,
in many different ways. And for me, in my eyes, I talk to several people a day, and I've always said, even if I help just one person a day find that peace within, I know I've served for my
yeah.
highest good, my highest purpose.
Yep, it's all worth
For
it.
me,
Exactly.
that's my high. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Is when I'm after the phone call, I speak to somebody or the interaction with them, that they leave more in a peace of mind and understanding. For me,
yep.
that's my gift, and I know my job is done, you know?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So if somebody is like, you know what, how do I get a hold of John? Like, what is
Oh
the
yeah,
best
yeah,
way for someone to
yeah.
reach you?
There's two ways they can reach me. They can go to my website, and that is johnjdavisnde.com, and they can also email me. My email is johnjdavis65 at icloud.com, and I do get back to everybody.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so amazing. And like, thank you, John. I really, really appreciate it, you know,
Well,
for for
thank you for inviting me.
for having the time with you and chatting. And I want to thank everyone for watching and tuning in. And just keep in mind, everyone, that we all have our experiences, and don't second guess things. You know what I mean? Like, we can share something with someone and they can think, oh, you're just full of it. Don't listen to that. Your truth. It's like with me, I used to run businesses for many years, once upon a time ago, many moons ago, and then I'd do my readings and spiritual work on the side, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I have to be
Mhm.
who I am, do my spiritual work,
Yeah,
surrender it, have the faith, you know, that near
yeah,
death experience with Christ and the message he gave me. I just continue on. I surrender, have that faith, stay optimistic, and continue
yep,
on, you know.
yep. Do what you're supposed to be doing.
100%, 100%.
Yep.
So everyone, now make sure you subscribe to my channel. All it takes is just hit that little subscribe button. This interview is going to be on many other platforms. Tune in here, right here on YouTube and so on. And if you have a story, don't forget, or you'd like to talk about something, reach out to me. Go to my website to book a clairvoyant reading. And also, if you want to get in touch with me to share a story, that's the best way to do it. Even my team of my website guys, they'll get a hold of me if I miss a message. So that's what I'm saying, to go there. soulworkwithjennyg.com. And I want to thank everyone for watching, and especially to my guest, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
Jenny. So good to
appreciate
meet
it.
you.
Yes, you too. You too. And you never know, I might, Colorado, as I mentioned, it's my heart and my soul, as I talked
Sure.
about it. And, I've been getting pulled to go back there for quite some time. I really
Yeah.
have. So who knows, what
We'll
spirit
have
has.
lunch. We'll have lunch.
Oh yeah, that'll be the longest lunch. We'd be there all day,
Yeah.
you know. So
Well, I
thank you.
really enjoyed talking to you so much.
Yes, you too.
So
You
good. So
too.
good to talk to you.
Absolutely. Take care, John. And make
All
sure you
right.
guys
Thanks,
tune
Jenny.
in again. Watch my regular series, Cosmic Vibes. I talk about the energy every single day, how to work through it, what days are better than the others to manifest, and so much more. Until
Yeah.
then, namaste, everyone. And thank you again, John.